Okay, good day. Welcome back. I've actually decided to do one more video for now on scoutfish, just to show another feature of the game search functionality, which I found pretty useful, and I came up with an even sort of more interesting list of games. So let's just go and have a look at what I'm talking about here. Now, I think if we looked at this last time, you will remember that we had. Scanning for queen sacrifices, which is where I started it, right? And I said, well, actually, you can actually do, and the way I did that, I was originally using this streak functionality. You just see that on the screen there. So that was ensuring that the queen sack was a real one. It wasn't queen takes rook, rook takes queen takes rook, whatever. Right? So, and then it occurred to me a couple of the games we were looking at were there were queen sacks, and then the white or black king went for a bit of a run around the board. And actually, they were probably the more interesting games to look at. So what I thought I'd do is actually combine another feature of Scoutfish for searching for that. Now, of course, we're not actually changing the underlying code of Scoutfish here, the C++ and so on, but we are using the Python wrapper, so it's a little bit of coding. So I think that kind of fits in with the sort of the theme of these videos. So the one I was actually going to use is sequence. And what sequence means is this first thing happened, i.e. there was a queen sack, and then after that, I wanted a king hunt or a king chase, right? Now, what I've done this... to move, just look at that's a parameter. It either says black to move or white to move. So in this case, depending on who sacrificed the piece, if white sacrificed the queen, then it would be black to move. And this is black crossing the half of the board and going to the one of those 8 moves means the black king's moved into the white side of the board. Now, I've done the same thing for white, but obviously I've cheated a bit because if white moves up to the 4th rank, that's not quite as bad. But anyway, it's actually a simple idea here of using this sequence as another search parameter to find games which have the queen sack and then the king being chased around. So I think that's the only change I made here to the code. Now I've run it. Let me just quit from this. I've run it, so here's the white version, and you get 104 games. So by putting an extra restriction on, you get a lot fewer games, which actually last time I had 800 games. Now it's got 100, so it's actually quite easy to sort of look through them and filter them in your own mind. Right? So what I then did is go back to this screen over here. I'll open up the white ones and have a look at the list of games. Now, a few of these games I've seen before because they are famous king chases and queen sacks. So let's just have a look at a couple of these where we were white. I must say at this stage I found it very difficult to find much about these players. Obviously 1872 Vienna is a long time ago. So this is between Schlemm and Waranay. So let's bring up that game. I think this one is a very short game, so we'll just go through the whole game and just have a look at this queen sack. So it is a bishop's opening, a bit unusual already. Right, classic sort of, not really theory, but you can see white's got a huge lead in development. The engine still says the game's even, but white's got a huge lead in development. Brings a knight back to e6, probably wise. So there we go. Sorry, here we go. Move too quick. So this is actually where the queen sack comes. White has decided that black's been wasting too much time, and presumably he saw this tactic. Knight e5 is not really liked by the computers. Black should just play d6, and the game goes on. But we wouldn't be looking at this game then. So let's have a look what happens. Okay. Let's analyze the position. See what you can come up with. Knight takes, so bishop takes f7 check. That's the obvious move. And now what's next? Well, let's bring out our other bishop. This actually technically does win the queen back, but we've ended up with a nice king chase coming out of it. So I just want to see if my Scoutfish game search has worked. So the king's already on the 6th rank. Move the knight check. Now, obviously, the bishop's now covering the square behind. And it's classic king hunt where you surround the king from behind like that, and the king gets pushed forward. So to continue the moves. 6, that makes sense. Could have gone c5 as well, right? And now, well, it's funny that actually the computer still thinks the game's pretty even. I mean, white bites the bullet and basically takes the queen back, so now material's even. And then in this position, what would you do? What would you do as black, right? Basically, the game's fairly even, d5, d6, no worries at all. But of course, it looks like, for our entertainment purposes, black, Mr. Waranay, he's a greedy guy. So he wants that rook in the corner, takes the rook, and now it's white is winning. There's a couple of continuations. Rook c1 is, obviously lining it up in a very nasty way, up down the c file. Let's take that rook, and now this continuation knight e5 check. So let's have a look at how many squares are covered. That square is covered. That square is covered. And obviously over here, sort of it's boxing you in. Black decides to go towards the side. Rook takes c7. That's an interesting move. Not basically the only really clear winning move. Obviously a horrible discovered check is threatened. Not much to do. d6 is one continuation, and now it's rook c6 double check. Knight's holding the rook. Check that way. Let's check that way. That's not good. Double check. King must move. Only one square to go to because that square covered. That square too. And then knight c3 check, bringing the last piece into play. Now, black is very short of squares, and a3 is checkmate. So that's quite interesting. So definitely we got our queen sacrifice, which actually in the end white got the queen back, and the king was forced to the white side of the board and was checkmated there. Right. So that's the first of the games. I'll quickly look at 4 of these games just to see how they fit into the framework of, are they really queen sacks followed by a king march? So let's look at the second game, Castells Mendez-Holtey. This is from Buenos Aires. I'm actually going to go to move 15 here, just sort of get a bit of the flavor. So you can see that white's got a bit of a kingside attack here, got a few pieces pointing to the black king, and maybe something's going to happen. And actually, you look at black has quite a few pieces on the queen side, which are not helping things, right? So white retreated his knight. It was obviously risk of being taken. Now bishop e6, that is the bad move. Now have a look. Several winning moves. This one is quite spectacular in its own way. It's another one of these queen moves into open air, right? It just shows you how bad the black position must be, the fact that this move wins. I'm not going to say this game that wasn't the only winning move, so just like it's one of those sort of what shall we say, optional queen sacks. Okay, so what you're going to do, take the queen off the board. I think it's actually open up this diagonal. So bishop takes h7 check. Check by the knight. Must move the king. Knight takes h5 check. Also very nice. Let's have a look at how many squares are covered here. Bishop covers that square, and the knight checking there and checking there. So there's only one square to go to. King h6. Let the games continue. So look, this bishop is now there, so we can do a discovered check, which is what white does. Knight takes e6 check. Once again, there's not many choices here. This square is covered, this square is covered, this square is obviously covered, so black is forced to take the knight. King takes h5, rook f5 check. King g4, and then rook g5 check. The king is not long for this world. This is where the game ended, but the continuation would be king to h4, g3 check, king to h3, and then, for instance, bishop f5 checkmate. So obviously the king is being forced to the white side of the board and is just getting cut apart by these two bishops, and the knight holding different squares as well, and the rook and the pawns. Right, that's a very classic, little classical king chase. Okay, so let's move on to the third game I want to look at, Roedl-Bluemich. This is from Germany in 1934. So obviously it's all these old classic games which are very good. So let's go to move around about 25, I believe. So look at the position. Okay, so once again, it looks like White has been conducting a roaring attack on the Black King, and Black's developed the queen side nicely, but obviously this is all going to be about the queen sack and king chase, right? Knight d7. Now that is a mistake because this queen was holding the f7 square, so it's no surprise what happens here is it's basically a spectacular sacrifice on f7, which king got to take back. Now, obviously, what we're looking at now is very nasty double checks coming up, which is what happened. Bishop takes d5, double check. Now, you know, once again, it stops the king from retreating. So, going to e7 doesn't help because that's simply going to be checkmate on the f7 square because you know there's so many of these squares covered. Okay, so king g6 is the most logical move, but now we can use the bishop to drive the king forwards. Only one square available, has to take the g-pawn. Oh, now we suddenly realize we've got another bishop. Bring the other bishop into the game. Bishop f1 check. That's not nice. This bishop is just getting cut to ribbons by the two bishops, which is another theme we've seen. King g4, rook f4 check, king g5, and rook e4. A discovered checkmate. Always nice, right? And the square is covering that, and the rook has to stay on the e file. Sorry, the fourth rank to hold the squares there. So this one, the king got the fourth rank and got pushed back, and very, very entertaining checkmate and good use and coordination of all the pieces. They're quite amazing, these games. Next one, I think there's a couple of videos on YouTube channels for this one already. Huber versus Lemke, and it's from Essen in Germany in 1936. Going to go to move 9. Could go through the whole game. Let's have a look at where we are. So just go back one move. So the bishop is pinning the knight to the queen. So White didn't like that. H3, traded the bishop, and then now there's one main winning move. Once again, this is a very good position for a tactical study. If you're into that sort of thing, you'd be amazed to know that once again it is a queen sacrifice. So it's a very common theme here of actually having a weak f7 square. So knight takes e5, right? Now bishop takes d1 seems to be the best move in this position, but now obviously we're going to get the same routine as always. Bishop takes f7 check, king moves up. We have another bishop to move into the position. Now this is similar to the other game where actually, well, let's have a look at all these squares which are covered. So king's only got one square to go to, and on top of that, you know, White could now recapture the queen, but you know who wants to do that? Knight e4 check, bring our other knight into the game. King c7 is actually the best move, right? Get the king out of dodge, and then you take the queen, and you know you'll end up plus 3. Seems to be the analysis of that. However, you know, much better for us that Lemke decided to take the knight. You know, it's a free knight. Why not? So now it's about getting it's forced mate now, getting all the pieces into the action, right? So f4 check. Now you look at it. This is once again, this is a common theme. The king's been surrounded, can't go back. Yeah. So just for instance, king f5. That stupid knight. That's checkmate already. So the other continuation is move the king up to d4, which now it's satisfying our king chase logic. Let's take the bishop off. So the king is still trapped on our side of the board. and c3 check is a deadly threat. So black sidesteps that. But now we have a lot of fun. Rook f3 check, king must move forwards. Rook d2 check. It's good to have a knight holding the rook. Excellent. King to e1 and rook f1 checkmate. I mean, what a beautiful checkmate. The king's going all the way down the board. Right, just totally amazing. So let's have a look if we can retrace the steps. Went to e7, then went to d6, then went to e5, then went to d4, then went there, and there, and there. What an amazing king hunt that was. Okay, so let's look at, that's all I want to look at for the white side. So that's very interesting. You can see the first 4 games, all very nice queen sacks, nice king marches, excellent, right? So what I'll do now is, I've already done already, if we do it for the black side, I indicate black side, I just start them. And I've loaded that before, this is the file. Okay, so let's have a look at the games we got. Well, there's a bit of sometimes notice in the case of the database the games are duplicated, right? So we're going to look at, there's 3 of these games, very interesting, right? So the first one is Fisher, not the Fisher, a Fisher versus Steinitz. So first world chess champion. So let's have a look at this game. Got to take notes. Oh no, I said to go through the whole game. So let's go through the whole game. E4, E5, Bishop C4, Bishop. Ah, that's right, because it's like some version of the Latvian gambit. I don't know what this one's called because it's against the bishops. Opening, okay, bishop takes g8, rook takes g8, and now we take gambit pawn, he takes f5 and d5. So I think black's doing fine in this position, right? Obviously his king's a bit airy. Queen h5 check. I think that's not the best move. Obviously must interpose. Fg and rook takes g6, and now black is for choice in this position. White has done nothing. You better start getting developed, which he does. Black does the same. Knight c6. Okay, castles. Bishop g4. So you can see that White's queen is actually quite embarrassed here. Don't have too many squares to go to, and he's going to end up a little bit trapped. And now run back, and okay, so we have 3 open files on the king side pointing at the white king. So you get the feeling something bad's going to happen here. Try and push the queen away even further. Queen h4. Okay, that's great. We're threatening checkmate. Okay, that's one way of stopping it. Bishop takes e2, queen takes e2. Now, have a look at the difference in piece activity and the advantage. So let's bring our knight into play, which makes a lot of sense. And then white decides, for whatever reason, just queen d1. That's the most ridiculous move I've ever seen. Right? Anyway, that's what happened. And now black piles in. Knight f1 check. It's forced mate now, by the way. And the best move given for white is actually to take that knight off, which is obviously not what white has done, because we have a king chase. King h1. Right, okay. Queen sack time. So let's have a look what happens here. Queen takes h3. G takes. Rook takes. Only one move. The knight is held, so the rook can go to h2 check. And now the bishop comes into play. Bishop d6 check, forcing the king forwards. Rook h4 check. King getting surrounded and forced forwards. King f5. Rook f4 check. Forced to the 6th rank because all the squares which were covered. And it'd be quite nice for the other rook to get into play, but it's not necessarily. Rook g6, just keep on checking. Bring the bishop back. King h7. Move the king over. That is quite neat. The king is the extra piece which is needed to force checkmate. So rook h1. I mean, there's nothing to be done here. Bishop g7, and obviously rook h8 checkmate is coming. So that was amazing as well. The king's being forced all the way up the board by the combination of this killer octopus knight here is certainly one piece which sort of held the rook as it checked it forwards. Okay, the next game I believe is probably just almost a standard sort of opening theory one, right? It's Traxler. I mean, it's Wilkes-Barre Traxler variation. Let's see if that's what he plays. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4. Okay, we'll let him there. Knight F6, 2 knights. Fried liver attack, as it were. Knight G5, but Bishop C5. Indeed, we have it, right? And of course, you're supposed to take with the bishop. It's the approved line. But however, it's not what White did. Now, of course, there is queen sack in here because the queen's being attacked already. So bishop takes f2 check, king e square, knight d4 check. Nice tempo. King d3. The king's moving up. b4. Now that's an interesting move, right? b5, sorry. Pushing the bishop back. Knight takes e4. I mean, this is the queen sack bit of it, right? So white decided I got to grab the queen now, but the problem is that we've got two knights and a bishop surrounding the white king. The white king's in a lot of trouble. Knight e2 check, which if you look at that move, what that's doing is it's opening up that square. Bishop d4 check. Have a look at the squares are covered. The knight's covering that square. Pawn is covering that square. So the king gets forced forwards. Knight's protected. So obviously move a5 check. King must take the b5 pawn. So totally surrounded and being pushed forwards. Got the other bishop. Get the other bishop into play. Bishop a6 check. King is forced to take the a5 pawn, bishop d3 check, or just to be nice. I mean, obviously we could have taken the queen, but that's a nastier way of doing it. Keep the queen on the board. Right, a6 check. I mean, these bishops are making a nice barrier here, so the king's just being kicked around. Knight b4, discovered check. King takes the knight. And c5 mate. There's a nice checkmate with the final piece coming to the rescue. Okay, so that was quite fun. And in the opening, named after the guy. What I want to look at is this one, Averbakh-Kotov from the famous 1953 Zurich tournament. One of the sort of the brilliancies from that tournament, which has a queen sack and it has a knight march. So people have done videos about this already. You should go and look at those. This kind of deserves a video because it's just an amazing game, right? So we're in this position, right? Looks like a King's Indian, and I mean basically black is better, right? But yeah, it's not so clear where black has to break through, and in this position. This is a good one. There is only one clearly winning move, right? +5 if this move is played, -5 from black's perspective. Whereas otherwise the advantage is like less than a pawn, right? So I think you can guess the move. Queen takes h3 check. King has to take. Rook h6 check. So king can't go back, and king can't go there. To g3, forced forwards. Now bring the knight into play. Knight f5 check. There's only sort of only forwards, right? Not going to continue. This is a very amazing game. Deserves a whole video on itself. But you can see that this filter I've set up actually is really identifying games which are really interesting. I can spend a lot of time looking at them. Okay, so that's that. I say this was just another sort of look at scoutfish and thinking about using extra features. In this case, I used both the streak for getting the queen sack and then the sequence for queen sack followed by a sort of a king crossing the other side of the board, and therefore came up with a bunch of very interesting games. So look, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that.